In today's fast-paced world, anxiety disorders and depression have emerged as pervasive challenges, touching the lives of millions across the globe. The conventional response often involves psychotropic drugs, antidepressants, and anti-anxiety medications that have become a staple of modern psychiatric treatment. However, these pharmaceuticals frequently fail to deliver a lasting cure, acting instead as temporary supports that can leave individuals dependent and vulnerable. Thankfully, there exists an alternative path to healing that eschews medication entirely. Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychiatrists in history, developed a drug-free approach that delves into the root causes of psychological suffering. This article explores Jung's transformative methods, focusing on psychological insight, confronting the shadow, and finding meaning in life as essential steps toward authentic mental health recovery. Psychotropic medications are a cornerstone of contemporary psychiatric care, with millions of prescriptions issued annually to mitigate the symptoms of anxiety and depression. While these drugs can provide temporary relief for some, their effectiveness is frequently overstated, and they carry significant drawbacks. Primarily, they target symptom suppression rather than tackling the underlying causes of psychological distress. For instance, an antidepressant might elevate a patient's mood by adjusting neurotransmitter levels, but it leaves unresolved the life circumstances, emotional conflicts, or existential dilemmas that may have triggered the depression in the first place. Jung was notably critical of this reductionist paradigm, which he believed oversimplified mental suffering by reducing it to mere biological imbalances. In The Symbolic Life, he observed, the elite still cling firmly to the notion that anxiety disorders originate in alterations within the brain. Unfortunately, many run-of-the-mill doctors still swear by this gospel to the detriment of their patients, whom our age produces in swarms. Nearly all these patients have been convinced by the medical dogma that their sickness is of a physical nature. He argued that this medical model overlooks the profound, often non-biological origins of psychological pain, such as unresolved inner conflicts or a lack of purpose, thereby diminishing the patient's agency. By casting individuals as passive recipients of chemical intervention rather than active participants in their healing, this approach can foster a sense of helplessness. Scientific evidence supports Jung's skepticism. Studies reveal that antidepressants are effective for only about 60 to 70% of patients, and even then, the benefits may be modest or fleeting. Furthermore, these medications often come with a host of side effects, ranging from weight gain and sexual dysfunction to, in some cases, an increased risk of suicidal thoughts, complicating their long-term utility. Beyond physical drawbacks, psychotropic drugs can engender psychological dependency, where patients rely on medication to function without developing the resilience or skills needed to cope independently. This over-reliance aligns with Jung's critique of a system that prioritizes quick fixes over deep, meaningful change, discouraging the introspective work essential for true recovery. To illustrate, consider the case of a patient who turns to medication to numb persistent anxiety stemming from a strained relationship. While the drug may dull the symptoms, it does nothing to address the relational dynamics or personal growth needed to resolve the root issue. Jung's approach, by contrast, invites individuals to look beyond the pill bottle and into the rich, complex landscape of their psyche, empowering them to take charge of their mental well-being. Jung's method eschews pharmaceutical solutions in favor of a profound psychological insight. Many instances of anxiety and depression arise not from a defective brain but from a misguided approach to living. This perspective shifts the emphasis from biological determinism to personal responsibility and self-understanding. At its core is Jung's assertion that life is inherently difficult, a truth that runs counter to modern society's obsession with perpetual happiness and comfort. In Structure and Dynamics of the Psyche, he wrote, "In the last resort, it is highly improbable that there could ever be a therapy that got rid of all difficulties. Man needs difficulty. They are necessary for health. What concerns us here is only an excessive amount of them." This view is both sobering and empowering, suggesting that struggles are not aberrations to be eradicated, but vital elements of a healthy, balanced existence. Jung's own life offers a compelling testament to this belief. In the early 20th century, he endured a period of intense psychological upheaval, which he later termed his confrontation with the unconscious. During this time, he experienced vivid dreams, visions, and inner dialogues that he meticulously documented and analyzed. Far from viewing this turmoil as a hindrance, Jung saw it as a crucible for personal growth, a process that deepened his understanding of the human psyche. He later reflected in the Red Book, "The acceptance of oneself is the essence of the whole moral problem and the epitome of a whole outlook on life." This experience solidified his conviction that embracing life's challenges fosters resilience and character, qualities indispensable for psychological well-being. For Jung, the societal push for an easy, trouble-free life sets a dangerous trap. When individuals expect constant ease and are met instead with inevitable hardships, they become disillusioned, weak, and prone to despair. By contrast, accepting difficulties as a natural part of existence equips people to face them with strength and purpose. In Man and His Symbols, he described life as a battleground. It always has been, and always will be, and if it were not so, existence would come to an end. This metaphor underscores his belief that struggle is not only unavoidable but essential to a meaningful life. Jung also cautioned against an overemphasis on the past as a source of healing. While understanding one's history can offer context, he saw excessive focus on it as a form of avoidance. In 2 essays on analytical psychology, he noted, "People should know that not only the neurotic, but everyone, naturally prefers never to seek the causes of any inconvenience in himself, but to push them as far away from himself as possible in space and time. Otherwise, he would run the risk of having to make a change for the better." For example, someone might endlessly dissect their childhood to explain current failures, perhaps blaming distant parents for their inability to form connections, rather than addressing present behaviors and choices. Jung insisted that genuine transformation occurs in the now, through active engagement with today's challenges rather than dwelling on yesterday's wounds. To apply this insight, one might reflect on a current difficulty, say a demanding job, and instead of wishing it away, consider how it might strengthen their patience or problem-solving skills. This shift in perspective, rooted in Jung's philosophy, lays the foundation for lasting psychological resilience. Building on this psychological groundwork, Jung introduced a practical step: confronting the shadow. In Mysterium Conjunctionis, he declared, "The first requisite of any thorough psychological method is for consciousness to confront its shadow. The shadow encompasses the aspects of our personality we suppress or deny, traits deemed unacceptable due to shame, fear, or societal norms. It is the hidden self we obscure from others and often from ourselves. This concept is dynamic, forming over time as we internalize what is good or bad. A child scolded for showing anger, for instance, might bury that emotion, relegating it to the shadow. Over years, these repressed elements, anger, envy, greed, laziness, or even stifled creativity, coalesce into a potent unconscious force that shapes our actions in subtle, often destructive ways. Jung elaborated in Psychology and Religion, "There can be no doubt that man is, on the whole, less good than he imagines himself or wants to be. Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. The shadow isn't merely a repository of flaws. It also harbors untapped potential, qualities like assertiveness or passion that were discouraged but could enrich our lives if reclaimed. Ignoring these aspects doesn't erase them. It allows them to fester in the unconscious, where they can erupt unpredictably. Confronting the shadow serves multiple purposes. First, it grants control over these hidden traits. As Jung noted in Mysterium Conjunctionis, anything conscious can be corrected, But anything that slips away into the unconscious is beyond the reach of correction, and its rank growth undisturbed is subject to increasing degeneration. Happily, nature sees to it that the unconscious contents will erupt into consciousness sooner or later and create the necessary confusion. By acknowledging a tendency towards selfishness, for example, one can temper it rather than letting it sabotage relationships unconsciously. Second, the shadow holds latent strengths. In psychology and religion, Jung observed, the shadow is merely somewhat inferior, primitive, unadapted, and awkward, not wholly bad. It even contains qualities which would in a way vitalize and embellish human existence, but convention forbids. A person who has suppressed their creativity due to practicality might rediscover it, channeling it into art or innovation that enhances their life. Jung proposed practical ways to engage the shadow. One method involves examining projections. Those qualities in others that provoke strong emotional reactions often mirror our own disowned traits. If someone's arrogance triggers intense irritation, it might reflect a rejected ambitious streak within oneself. Jung wrote in Ion, with a little self-criticism one can see through the shadow, urging honest introspection about our motives and reactions. Practical exercises can deepen this process. Keeping a journal of moments when others' behaviors spark disproportionate anger or envy can reveal shadow elements. Alternatively, Jung's technique of active imagination, dialoguing with inner figures through writing or visualization, can bring these traits to light. As he famously stated in Psychology and Alchemy, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Integration doesn't mean unleashing every impulse. Rather, it involves recognizing these facets and expressing them constructively. A repressed aggressive streak, once acknowledged, might fuel healthy assertiveness instead of passive-aggressive outbursts. This process fosters wholeness, aligning the conscious and unconscious self. The capstone of Jung's approach is perhaps its most powerful, guiding individuals to find meaning in their lives. He believed that a lack of purpose underpins much psychological distress, fueling feelings of emptiness that manifest as anxiety or depression. In The Symbolic Life, he asserted that overcoming these conditions requires discovering a role as one of the actors in the divine drama of life. For Jung, meaning is not an optional luxury, but a fundamental need. Without it, people languish in a void, prone to despair or compulsive behaviors, seeking fleeting distractions to mask their inner unrest. Jung's encounter with a Pueblo tribe chief in the early 20th century vividly illustrates this principle. The chief shared, "We are the sons of the Father, the Son. We must help him daily to rise over the horizon and to walk over heaven. And we don't do it for ourselves only. We do it for America. We do it for the whole world." Jung was struck by the chief's serene dignity, noting, "These people have no problems. They get up in the morning with a feeling of their great and divine responsibility. They are the sons of the Son, the Father, and their daily duty is to help the Father over the horizon, not for themselves alone, but for the whole world. You should see these fellows. They have a natural, fulfilled dignity." Unlike many Westerners plagued by neuroses, the Puebloans thrived, their lives suffused with purpose. Contrast this with a Western woman Jung described in The Symbolic Life, a compulsive traveler whose existence he called utterly, grotesquely banal. He recalled, "I was amazed when I looked into her eyes, the eyes of a hunted, a cornered animal, seeking, always in the hope of something. She is possessed. And why is she possessed? Because she does not live the life that makes sense. Her relentless pursuit of travel, relationships, or material gains betrayed a deeper hollowness, a void Jung believed only meaning could fill. Meaning, however, is deeply personal. Jung didn't advocate adopting the Puebloan cosmology, but encouraged each person to uncover their own purpose. He mused, "But if she could say, 'I am the daughter of the moon,' Every night I must help the moon, my mother, over the horizon. Ah, that is something else. Then she lives. Then her life makes sense, and makes sense in all continuity, and for the whole of humanity. This might manifest through creative outlets, writing, painting, or music, that allow individuals to leave a unique mark on the world. Others might find it in service, such as volunteering, mentoring, or nurturing loved ones. Spiritual practices like meditation or prayer can also connect one to a transcendent sense of purpose. Jung's concept of individuation ties this pursuit to psychological wholeness. Individuation is the lifelong journey of integrating all aspects of the self, conscious and unconscious, to become a fully realized individual. Discovering one's unique calling is central to this process, requiring introspection and courage. Practical steps can initiate this journey, reflecting on activities that ignite passion or fulfillment, or identifying core values that resonate deeply. For instance, someone might realize that teaching others brings them alive, prompting them to pursue mentoring as a source of meaning. As Jung wrote, "That gives peace, when people feel that they are living as actors in the divine drama." Without meaning, Jung warned, individuals fall into a cycle of compulsive seeking, chasing wealth, status, or fleeting pleasures to escape life's banality. Yet these pursuits rarely satisfy, leaving a lingering sense of futility. True fulfillment arises from knowing one's life matters, that it contributes to a greater narrative. For those who embrace this quest, Jung promised a fulfilling life. For those who don't, years or decades of pointless suffering loom. Carl Jung's drug-free approach to treating anxiety and depression stands as a powerful counterpoint to the pharmaceutical status quo. Through psychological insight, he teaches us to embrace life's difficulties and anchor ourselves in the present, setting the stage for transformation. Confronting the shadow enables us to integrate our hidden selves, reclaiming control and unlocking potential. And finding meaning converts suffering into purpose, offering a durable remedy for psychological pain. In an age enamored with instant solutions, Jung's method demands dedication and self-reflection, yet its rewards are profound. It targets not merely symptoms, but the essence of mental distress, guiding individuals toward a richer, more purposeful existence. As he affirmed in The Symbolic Life, "I am only concerned with the fulfillment of that which is in every individual. That is the problem of the true Pueblo, that I do today everything that is necessary so that my Father can rise over the horizon." For those willing to walk this path, Jung's wisdom endures, illuminating a route to healing that transcends the limits of medication and restores the human spirit to its fullest expression.